is this week. So what are your plans for celebrating Earth Day?
Probably just hugging a tree.
You're listening to COVID-18, a podcast that explores high school seniors' experiences during the pandemic. Merced is located in California's Central Valley, which means both pollution from the big cities and smoke from the fires merge with our air. Because of this, Merced has high rates of asthmatic kids and frequent bad air quality days. So in the first week of quarantine, when asked what the positive thing was about self-isolation, Vincent Arroyo, who previously shared about his dreams for prom, spoke about the news.
I heard that the pollution has decreased massively in Italy and China, and I feel like if we get quarantined by law, I feel like that could help California as well, and just not California in general, but just the United States as a whole.
He wasn't the only one. Pete Garcia, who spoke last week about his frustration with Merced's disobedience to the shelter-in-place orders, noticed a change as well.
When I look out the window, I don't know if it's just me, but the skies seem bluer. The earth is really just cleaning itself up now that humans are sitting in their homes.
Pete is a little more familiar with this special day than most.
I've always been when I was younger, I was an avid gardener. I would garden every day. I'd go out and I'd pick weeds. I'd make sure my plants were healthy and I'd water them. And no matter what I planted, even if it was almost dead, it would grow back. I was the green thumb poster child for Earth Day, you know?
It is safe to say that most seniors were thrilled about this change. When I started running and biking during quarantine, I could physically feel the difference in my lungs. There were no pains, no coughing, and the skies, as Pete said, were most definitely clearer. But even so, the ripple effect this might have on policies wasn't as clear.
I think they're all just going to go back to their same ways.
Rolando Guillen, who spoke a few weeks back on the bright side of the quarantine, felt society would learn nothing from this change.
They're all just going to do the same things they were doing before, honestly. I don't think major corporations are going to learn anything from this, in my opinion, or people in general.
And this was something common among many seniors. Growing up in a world with so much damage already done by the ones who lived before you, it feels a little defeating to think you can change the minds of those in power. Still, we do our part. We boycott, we protest, we speak our minds, and we make others listen. Fortunately, when it comes to speaking our minds, the media has become a tool for Generation Z. Which turns us into another thing many young people have been investing more of their time into: podcasting.
Okay, so this is test one of Two Bottoms, One Podcast.
Two Bottoms,
as
One
decided
Podcast.
by Siri.
Thank you, Overlord Siri and Apple.
Are we going to get into that? Big corporations?
Big corporations. Maybe not this episode. We're not prepared for that.
Big business.
Over the course of the quarantine, many people of all ages had been getting into hobbies. Sometimes old ones, sometimes new. When I asked seniors what hobbies they had gotten into, many of them told me they had gotten into things like drawing, painting, biking, or spending more time with family. Pete, on the other hand, embodying a true attitude of this generation, decided while sitting around at home that he was going to start a podcast with his friend Noel.
So we sat down, we recorded about an hour of us talking about random things, and we sort of had an outline structure that we wrote down beforehand, but we really just let ourselves just talk genuinely and have a good experience talking to each other while recording it.
And podcasts have been shown to produce a lot of benefits for everyone. For Pete, it became an outlet to talk about the things he thought were important. But for many others, like Lyrical, who had been listening to a new podcast put out by Phineas and Claudia Salewski, a celebrity couple, it also served as an alternative to the human connection she had been missing from the outside world.
I just relate to them so much. They just talk about their life and how they're doing in this situation. And it's kind of nice to hear how someone else is doing, as relation to yourself. You're like, dang, well, I relate to you. Like, I'm like doing nothing around the house. But it is nice to hear, other people have a conversation. Because, you feel kind of less alone.
And I can feel it. Over the weeks of quarantine, this podcast truly started to become my saving grace. It allowed me to connect with people every week, provide an outlet for my creativity, but also give a voice to topics I believe are important. Generation Z has gotten a lot of hate over the years, with descriptions like self-centered, spoiled, entitled, or worse. But if you look underneath the stereotypes, this generation is one to be reckoned with, especially when it comes to letting our truth be told. So what will we have to say about our graduation? Find out next week, as seniors face some decisions for the fate of their commencement ceremony, and learn about what their futures may hold and whom they may share them with. Remember to listen to previous episodes for more information on the seniors introduced again in today's episode. This is a production of We Said Youth Media and Youth Leadership Institute. I'm your host, creator, and producer, Rachel Livenall.